Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to conclude comments on the mid-year fiscal policy review on behalf of the minority caucus. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance created an impression that the government has rescued the economy and that the government and the people have been relieved as a result of their so-called prudent measures. But, Mr. Speaker, behind the polished language, however, lies a different account. Public debt has increased. Development expenditure has stalled. Revenue depends heavily on gold. Oil receipts have underperformed. Transport fares, utility charges, and the prices of locally produced goods continue to burden households. Mr. Speaker, in fact, maize and rice locally produced by our farmers are more expensive than imported rice and maize. Mr. Speaker, in fact, those who are awarded buffer stock contracts to supply food for our secondary schools, Mr. Speaker, prefer buying from importers than locally produced rice and maize. This government has not put in place measures aimed at directing suppliers to buy from our local farmers. The minister, Mr. Speaker, has gathered selected statistics, arranged them for maximum applause, and invited the country to mistaken presentation for performance. I repeat, from what he's done, he wants us to mistake presentation for performance. We are not here to talk about presentation, colored, flowered grammar. We want to feel his performance in our pockets. Mr. Speaker, we the minority, therefore, have a clear duty. We will not assist government to degrade its records. We will not repeat its campaign claims under the cover of parliamentary balance. We will examine the minister's own figures and show that the celebration is premature, the foundations are weak, and the lived reality of Ghanaians bear little resemblance to the picture painted at the dispatch box. Speaker, this review is built around a familiar political method where a ratio improves, the minister hides the rising absolute figure. Where expenditure falls below target, he calls it non-performance discipline. Where commodity prices lift growth and reserves, he claims structural transformation. Where inflation slows, he speaks as though prices are falling. And where inheritance programs produce results, he presents them as achievement conceived and delivered entirely by this administration, when in fact he knows that is not the case. The question before this House, therefore, Mr. Speaker, is whether or not the government has reduced the burden on the Ghanaian citizen, expanded productive opportunity, executed the development budget, and placed economy on a durable path. On each of these tests, Mr. Speaker, the mid-year review falls short, and I so submit. It is our case, Mr. Speaker, as minority, using the government's own statement that the debt stock is rising, that the celebrated debt ratio rests heavily on the denominator, that the fiscal outcome has been supported by massive under-expenditure, that growth remains exposed to gold, that oil revenues have missed their target, and that the cost of living remains stubbornly high in the areas that matter most to ordinary people. Mr. Speaker, on this score, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Agric, the Minister for Works and Housing, and perhaps the Roads and Highway Minister would all bear witness. The minister is not paying contractors. So if you underperform in your expenditure and you are holding the funds, you don't say that there is growth. Mr. Speaker, this government has abandoned agriculture and heavily depending on gold for reserve program. What Gold Board is doing is what the government is depending on. where IMF is reporting that the amount of 9.6 billion losses as a result of certain actions at the Gold Board. Mr. Speaker, at the right time, the Gold Board will be summoned to this House through proper procedures in Parliament for them to account for all the losses that they have incurred. They can call us names. We don't mind. We will stick to the rules and hold their feet to account. Mr. Speaker, the minister may control the presentation, but he does not control the fact printed in his own document. The private sector, Mr. Speaker, they cancelled the 1D1F. The 1D1F program of Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration was aimed at helping the private sector with low taxes, helping the private sector with they getting rebates in terms of taxes on their equipment and raw materials. It was going to help the private sector to grow. They came, they said they are cancelling that policy. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, there is no alternative policy for the private sector. And this the minister wants us to celebrate. They are not creating growth in the economy. They are not creating jobs. Mr. Speaker, even the jobs they came to meet, we have it on record in this very house that this government dismissed thousands of Ghanaian youth. And those who have qualified as teachers and nurses, they are refusing to employ them. Every now and then you hear of demonstration by nurses, demonstration by teachers. Today, this government is quiet, is silent. It's not creating the enabling environment for job creation. And yet, the minister comes here and says everything is well. Mr. Speaker, the centerpiece of the minister's celebration is a claim that Ghana has already achieved a debt to GDP ratio of 45%. We are not interested in the numbers. When the minority met GUTA, when the minority met AGI, when the minority met Employers Association, they told us the reality on the ground, that the business environment is not favorable, that they are incurring losses, that, Mr. Speaker, that so-called publican software introduced at the port, government claims that it is raking in revenue. Meanwhile, it is costing the importer millions. It is making import expensive. And yet, you bring a software without doing the necessary research. You go in and you are only interested in the revenue. You are not interested in the cost of that revenue to the ordinary Ghanaian. So in the research agenda, what have you achieved? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, the government is only interested in numbers, the macroeconomic numbers. We are not interested in that. You are not here to please the IMF and the World Bank. The government must know that it is the people of Ghana that voted for you. If you are interested in polishing the numbers so that the IMF will clap for you and your people will suffer, I'm sorry, then you are losing your mandate. Mr. Speaker, the government also seeks to detach the current debt position from the painful restructuring and the taking before it assumed office. That the domestic debt exchange, the external debt negotiations, and the Eurobond restructuring created the fiscal space from which the present administration now speaks. Yet the minister claims the outcome while continuing to condemn the measures that produce it. He cannot inherit the benefit and disown the process. That is hypocrisy. That is double standard. That is unprincipled politics. There is also nothing permanent about the ratio supported by favorable nominal growth, a strong gold price and exchange rate conditions. A weakening cedi, slower growth or decline in commodity price can reverse the ratio quickly. The government has therefore planted its flag on movable ground and called it a permanent victory. Mr. Speaker, time would expose this government. Mr. Speaker, the truthful statement is this: Ghana's debt to GDP ratio has fallen, but Ghana's debt has increased. The minister chose the statistic that flatters the government, and suppress the figures that exposes it. That is the pattern running through the entire review. Mr. Speaker, the IMF exits, a government claiming credit for supervised discipline. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, this government is claiming credit for supervised discipline. Mr. Speaker, the minister also presents completion of IMF program as proof of the government's exceptional economic management. This claim ignores the timeline, the conditions, and the institutional reality. The program was negotiated, entered into, and substantially implemented before this administration took office. The debt restructuring, fiscal measures, monetary tightening, and the program benchmark that made completion possible did not begin in January 2025. The government is claiming authorship of the final chapter of a book it did not write. It opposed measures when they were politically convenient to oppose, inherited their results, and now demands applause for completing the process. That is not reform. It is political opportunism. Mr. Speaker, the minister says Ghana met 10 of the 11 quantitative performance criteria. He gives little attention to the criterion that was missed, namely the ceiling on the Bank of Ghana's claim on central government. He describes a breach as technical. Really? A breach technical? Mr. Speaker, every fiscal abuse begins with an explanation that it is technical, temporary, or misunderstood. Parliament should not accept a label in place of accountability. If the majority will accept this, we, the mighty minority, will not accept this label. We know the reality. We know the truth that you breached. The breach concerns the relationship between the central bank and the government. Ghana has already paid a heavy price for blurred fiscal and monetary boundaries. Any transaction that increases claim on government or shifts obligation onto the Bank of Ghana's balance sheet deserves full disclosure. I repeat, you sacked the media. You didn't want the media to know. You didn't want the media to know what Bank of Ghana is doing. Today, you can't sack the media again. So I am repeating what you prevented the media from knowing. That any transaction that increases claims on government or shift obligation onto Bank of Ghana's balance sheet deserves full disclosure. You say you are a party of probity and accountability. Yet when Bank of Ghana is being exposed, you want to shut the doors and the windows to the media. Mr. Speaker, the minister cannot invoke central bank independence when attacking his predecessors and dismiss a breach as technical when it occurs under his watch. Mr. Speaker, the completion of the program also removes the external supervision that compelled the government to meet agreed targets. The true test, therefore, begins after the funds review. Disbursement and conditions cease to provide discipline. This administration has not yet demonstrated that it can preserve fiscal restraint when political pressure rises and external monitoring recedes. Mr. Speaker, the minister lists new institutions and control mechanisms, including the Fiscal Council, the Commitment Authorization Regime, and the Value for Money Office. Naming institutions is easy. Giving them independence, publishing their findings, and accepting their criticism is harder. A council that reports quietly to the executive cannot protect the public purse from the executive. The government must state whether the Fiscal Council's assessment will be published in full and laid before Parliament. It must disclose whether the Council can challenge unrealistic revenue assumptions, excessive commitment, and offer budget obligations. Without public reports, legal authority, and institutional independence, these bodies will become ceremonial addition to the minister's speeches. Mr. Speaker, IMF exit does not certify transformation. It confirms that Ghana completed a program created in response to a crisis. The government now seeks to convert completion into partisan trophy. The minority, the mighty minority, will not permit that rewriting of history. it will not happen under our watch. We shall expose you. Mr. Speaker, let me deal with inflation. A lower rate was used to conceal higher prices. Mr. Speaker, government most aggressive propaganda concerns inflation. The government's most aggressive propaganda concerns inflation. The minister announced to us a headline rate of 5.3%, as though the prices of food, transport, electricity, rent, and basic services have returned to affordable levels. Inflation falling does not mean prices are falling. It means prices are increasing at a slower rate than before. The high price level remains, and households continue to pay it. Mr. Speaker, can the minister answer why electricity tariffs have increased to almost 30% in less than 1.5 years? 1.5 years, 30%. You claim that there are irregularities at ECG, but the same contractors are being paid at ECG. Come clean and stop the politics. Come clean and stop the politics. Mr. Speaker, we are interested in the reforms being pursued at the energy sector. The Akufo-Addo government started some reforms. Their duty is to continue the reforms. It is not burdening the ordinary Ghanaian with tariffs that will solve the energy problem. And every now and then getting into the news with fake news, with propaganda of arresting those who were in charge, that will give you results. If you have facts, please pursue those facts. And if there's a need for reforms, pursue the reforms. You cannot continue to burden the ordinary Ghanaian. Almost 30% in tariffs. You charge 1 Ghana cedi per liter at the pump. And you have introduced some tax measures. All these in opposition, you said you are not going to increase taxes. You are not going to introduce taxes. But today, you increase taxes and introduce taxes and even bringing back road tolls. The very toll that we abolished. The very toll that you criticize. A government of inconsistencies. A government without principles. A government full of double standard. A government responsible for rhetorics. A government of propaganda. A government of settings. A government that does not create jobs. A government that is always full of sacking people. Mr. Speaker, a government that promises fewer ministers, yet appoint more and more appointees at the Jubilee House. That is who you are. Mr. Speaker, this distinction matters because government is deliberately blurring the figures. A family that could not afford a basket of goods last year does not suddenly afford it because the rate of increase has slowed. Workers have not recovered the purchasing power lost during the earlier price surges. Pensioners have not been compensated for erosion of their incomes. Businesses still operate with higher inputs by way of costs. The minister celebrates the speed of the increase, while citizens confront the level of the price. Mr. Speaker, the government's own decomposition shows that services inflation stood at 9.4%. Transport fares and other services used daily by ordinary people continue to rise far above the deadline rate. Locally produced items increased by 6.7% and accounted for the overwhelming share of the inflation experienced by households. Imported inflation may have eased, but domestic cost remains severe. Mr. Speaker, clearly, this exposes the hollowness of the government's claim that the ordinary Ghanaian is enjoying relief. The trader still pays more to move goods. The worker still pays more to commute. It is difficult to travel on the Accra-Kumasi road. They have abandoned that road and they say they're going to do an expressway. We are not against the expressway. That which you came to meet, Mr. Speaker, complete them. Continuity is the rule of the game. They came to meet this beautiful initiative. Agenda 111. Held for all. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, Not a single one have they attempted to complete. Mr. Speaker, meanwhile, they claim that they are doing 24-hour market. Mr. Speaker, at a whooping cost of 43 million cedis per market. Mr. Speaker, and do you know who they are awarding this contract to? Mr. Speaker, this is a House of Record. At the appropriate time, the minority will produce proof of those who are benefiting from this contract and whether or not they have capacity to execute. And Mr. Speaker, where are they getting the funding from? They came here to say that the District Assembly Common Fund will be allowed its space of utilization by the district chief executives and the municipal chief executives. But they are directing MMDCs to go to the Common Fund Administration, awarding contract in Accra for 24-hour market and pushing it on the throat of the assemblies. We know all of that. Mr. Speaker, what due diligence are they doing? Mr. Speaker, what is the competence level of those who are to consult these markets? Yet, Mr. Speaker, you have Agenda 111 that they are refusing to complete. Mr. Speaker, the finance minister knows very well that the way to run economy prudently is to create opportunity for all. What do we see? What do we see? Mr. Speaker, this is an economy that doesn't care about the ordinary Ghanaian. They promise the youth of this country that there will be 24-hour economy, that every job there will be 3 shifts. Every job there will be 3 shifts. Mr. Speaker, not a single opportunity has been created. What they did was to sack those who are in the employ of the state and brought in their party members. And even so, they have failed to create equal opportunity for all Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, this is not a government serious in transforming our country. Mr. Speaker, according to organized labor, Galamsey has worsened. The Galamsey menace has worsened because, Mr. Speaker, since they came into office, they created access for those indulging Galamsey to continue. That is why, Mr. Speaker, Gold Board has not enacted a regulation to draw a distinction between regularly mined gold and Galamsey mined gold. Gold Board is buying everything. So, Mr. Speaker, in reality, this government is promoting Galamsey, destroying our water bodies, destroying our forest cover, and they think that, Mr. Speaker, by using that to cushion the economy, that is all they need to do. No. Mr. Speaker, the question is, where is the 24-hour economy? Where is the women banking? You promised that even at night, you provide light, you provide torchlight for farmers to farm. Mr. Speaker, that was a promise. You said you provide torchlights for farmers to farm at night. You said the water seller will be given torchlight so that you will work at night. You said disco will be done during the day. There will be disco during the day. Mr. Speaker, today you are given the opportunity. Even when you have failed in performance, you are asking for third term. And you are trying to amend the constitution. And you think that by attacking the minority, by threatening the minority, by doing shut up, you have the free day to stay in government perpetually. I can assure you that your performance has already exposed you. And you, the majority today, you are on your way out. And come 2028, Mr. Speaker, no matter the number of arrests you effect, this mighty minority will be resilient, will be strong to fight back and turn it into a majority come 2028 election. Mr. Speaker, the government can decide to abandon running the economy and worsen the situation of the ordinary Ghanaian by focusing on the minority. Mr. Speaker, in fact, they can choose to arrest every single minority MP. And we encourage you to do it, since that is what you want to do. But Mr. Speaker, that will not change your story come 2028. Whether you like it or not, you are going to lose 2028. And the mighty minority will turn into the majority and sit on the right of Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the finance minister was only involved in empty rhetorics. If we ask the finance minister how many jobs in 1.5 years they've created, he cannot share with us any data, any statistics. Most of the ministers are redundant. Most of the ministers are redundant. Most of the ministers are redundant. Mr. Speaker, they don't get their releases. The minister said he has released 1.5 billion. His deputy said 1 billion. Mr. Speaker, which is which? But Mr. Speaker, we the mighty minority can assure them, we can assure you the NDC government, that no matter what you do, 2028 will be your day of reckoning. Mr. Speaker, with that said, I rest my case, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.